The Ben Heck Show is brought to you by Element 14, the electronic design community and online store built for engineers and hobbyists alike. Join now and browse the store at element14.com.
In the year 2000, Ben Heckendorn built his first mod.
We can rebuild it. Smaller, better, portable.
Since then, he has continued his work, helping those in need with creative new projects. Got an idea you'd like to see built? Why not send it to the Ben Heck Show?
Hello and welcome back to the Ben Heck Show. In today's episode, we're going to be working with Ben Sawyer of the Games for Health Foundation to build some game controllers that will allow parents to play with their children. Ben Sawyer was the brains behind the one-handed Guitar Hero foot pedal mod that we made a few years ago. Let's see what he wants to do this time.
Hi Ben, this is Ben Sawyer, and I want your help with a new controller idea that I want to premiere at my next Games for Health conference later this year called GameShare. It's about two people sharing the same single-player game and working together. So here's the idea. We wire two Xbox controllers together. The master controller handles mostly the more complex analog inputs, while the assistant controller handles the easier digital controls. Once we have this, I was thinking we could swap the assistant controller out for a dance pad where someone could break a sweat controlling those A, B, and XY buttons. My third idea is to create a button masher assistant controller, because it turns those A, B, XY inputs into a whack-a-mole-like fun way to play. So that's GameShare. I know you can do this.
First thing we're going to need to make in order for Ben's controller idea to work is a master controller. And this will be the controller that actually connects to the Xbox 360. And what we're going to do is add a plug to it, where we take all the pinouts that we need and put it on the plug. And this is actually very similar to something I build for the game industry quite often called a controller monitor. And what that is they want to test the latency of their video games, like how much lag there is between a button push and the game itself. They will get one of my controller monitors, and those things have wiring directly to the buttons, so you know, without any of the circuitry, causing lag, you know exactly when the user pushed the button, and they can time that to the screen to see how long their program is taking to interpret it. So those controllers have a little plug right down here, and then that goes to a monitor. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to attach this plug, but this is going to go to one of our secondary controllers. All right, so we're going to attach this thin cabling, and what I do is I get the Ultra ATA hard drive cable, which of course is kind of obsolete now with SATA, but it's a single strand thin cable, and it'll allow us to make the connections but not have the big bulky ribbon cable like this. So all the wiring is on this plug that we need, and we have it written out here what it's going to go to so we can use it as a reference later on. So next we're just going to attach it to the bottom here, and then bring all these connections to the buttons so they'll be duplicated out to the other devices. Okay, so here it is attached to the controller, and we're going to just pull apart these wires, and some of them are going to go over here to the buttons, and some will go over here to the shoulder triggers and whatnot. And we don't want to get in the way of the buttons themselves, so if you look right here, there's some traces. These buttons actually go on the other side and they come over here, so you can actually get all the buttons right here from these traces. So we're going to very carefully solder to these. It's not as difficult as it looks. All right, so this wire here connects to the Y pin on our plug. So we're just going to double check that it's working. Okay. We got to make sure the wires are solid, but as long as there's some copper showing, you usually can get things to stick. So we'll move on to the rest, and then we'll have this side all wired up. So we've got all the connections made here, and they won't interfere with the controls, but they will duplicate the controls right at the button level. Again, just like I do with my controller monitors. So we'll test this out on the computer, and then if it works, we'll button this up and then work on the accessory controllers. So we're just going to double check that these connections here match what these buttons do versus the screen. So like button A is button 1 on the controller mapping. Okay, so the next thing we need to hook up for Ben is we're going to take this dance pad, which you play Dance Dance Revolution on, and we're going to change the wiring in here so it'll hook up to a normal controller. You could use this, I would assume, for some games to do some of the commands, but Ben wants, instead of up, down, left, right, he wants it to be Y, B, A, X like how the Xbox controller is, and then he wants these other things remapped. So let's take a look inside. Okay, so we took the back off this dance pad thing, so we're going to take a look at what's inside. This has a screen printed circuit board, or circuit so to speak. It's kind of like how your keyboard works. They take thin pieces of plastic and they screen print, which is like when you squeegee over a aperture, the circuit onto the thin pieces of plastic. So there's basically one big, ground plane, so to speak, which goes over everything, and then that allows the current to pass through into the individual buttons. And if you look on this side, they've very conveniently labeled everything for us. Look at that. So to make this function for our joystick or our controller, all we have to do is basically disconnect these octal buffers. So this will be disconnected from the circuitry, and basically hook our extension wire right up to these, and we should be good to go. We've got our controller, and then here's where the button was, and right here, these are called octal buffers. And what an octal buffer does is you'll have, basically we have a signal on one side which will be connected to the signal on the other side. Well, here, I'll draw a picture of it. Octal buffer, octal meaning 8, like octopus or octomom. And you'll have, this looks like a spider. So what it does in this case is you have your voltage here and then grounds here, but then you'll have 1 or 2 buses you can enable. And maybe there's 2 of them, I don't know. And so what'll happen is you've got your signals here which are going to the pad. See, these go down to the pad, and then these go to the microcontroller. And if this bus is enabled, like an active low on G, then this will pass through. If it's not enabled, high, then this will be cut off. And there'll be 3 states, so basically there'll be no connection here whatsoever. So what by removing these octal buffers from that motherboard, we can basically completely cut off all the electronics to the dance pad and then wire up our own. All right, so we remove one surface mount chip, and look, I can still reuse it. I mean, I use octal buffers on things. So yeah, just got to get the other one off, and then we just wire up these things, and we should be able to get this thing working with our master controller. So this dance pad, we're going to use XYBA, start, back, and then the bumpers. So we're going to hook up this little connector here that's going to be able to go into our master controller. And the point is, we don't have to hook up every connection, just the one we need, plus ground. So we'll hook it up here first, and then we'll bring it over to this little board. I'm just going to wire these up straight in order as they need to hook up here, because I don't want them to crisscross and stuff. But then down the other end, if we need to crisscross them, we can do all that mess down here, because there's a lot more room to do it here than on this plug. All right, so we're just gonna attach the ribbon cable here that goes to our plug, and we're gonna start the ribbon cable a little bit longer, so we'll glue it here, and then we'll move the wires over left and right, because if we started it too short, the wires wouldn't reach, so we'll just give it a little bit of length, some slack, so we can get enough room for the wiring. Here's all the connections, so the next thing we do, we just test this out in the computer and see if this works. Okay, we're gonna see if we got the thing working here, so left bumper, right bumper, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. So this has been quite easily mapped to a basic controller function. So what Ben wants to do is, like, a parent could be moving the character around using the thumbsticks, and then the child or the other person, they could just do like the action, like they could do the jumping, so they get to be part of the game, but they don't have to worry about all the complexity. So they just, yay, I'm jumping. All right, so we'll bolt this together, and the next thing we need to do is just wait for Ben Sawyer to show up, and then he'll help us configure these devices and test them. Let's take a break from the show to talk about how Element 14 has been sponsoring a global hackerspace challenge. 28 hackerspaces from around the world, from Singapore to Vienna, and even here in Madison, Wisconsin, have all been working on new and exciting builds in the field of assisting education. Along with a team of judges, which includes Mitch Altman and Jerry Ellsworth, I'll be helping to determine which team will walk away with a collection of prizes furnished by Element 14 and their team of suppliers, including a brand new oscilloscope. Another project Element 14 has recently unveiled is their new Do It Together blog, which has a team of contributors including my friend Chris Kraft. The blog will be a place for people to share ideas and further celebrate the culture of electronics. Check it out at element14.com/blog. Now, back to the show. Oh, Ben, welcome to Wisconsin.
Ben, how are you?
You know, you're one of 2 people on my Facebook named Ben Sawyer.
Oh my God, there's more than one of us? The world can only handle one.
I know, it's weird. Who's this?
This is Everett. This is my son Everett. and we've come here to see how the Game Share controller is going because we want to play some games together.
So Ben, starting out here, you wanted to have a secondary controller where they could both hook up together, and if we're doing it like mechanically with circuitry, it's kind of hard to do it on an existing board because you have all the interfacing in there. It kind of messes up the signal. So I think it's actually easier. I went to Radio Shack and just got a piece of PVC and PCB. Yes, this is a pipe in your house, and I made like a little mock-up of it, right? So we can put the buttons on this, that way we don't have to worry about any circuitry interfering with the other controller.
Okay, so in that sense, this is really only going to have the circuits related to the button.
Right, we can bolt other controls on just to make it look good, but yeah, so this should fit in here pretty good. Ah, yeah.
So what we want is the X, Y, A, B buttons, and then the front bumpers, and then the start and back. So both people can. Sometimes back is used for like inventories and stuff like that.
Right.
And then everything else is really not needed.
Okay. There we go. It's all lined up now. So now we're just gonna put some more buttons in. Yahoo! Okay, look, I put the thumbstacks back in. They don't really do anything, but they're there.
And that's important.
Yes.
Because they want, now they have something they can do. They can pretend to play while they're learning to play.
Look at me, I'm not really playing. Yes. I'll solder those in and then we'll put on the shoulder buttons and then we'll wire the connections.
It works.
Yeah, it works.
I wish I knew how to do that.
It's not hard.
Now that you've made this part that controls the buttons and has the switches, how does that now connect to the master controller? Through some sort of cord?
Yeah, let's attach a cord. All the buttons on the Xbox 360 are really easy. You push the button and it takes a signal to ground. So we can hook these up in parallel to the main controller and it won't interface or interfere with it at all. So yeah, it should be pretty simple. All right, so I made a list here. This shows what pinouts to use on the master controller. So we first are going to attach this cable for the assistant controller to this plug here. And we just gotta make sure that we hook up the things we need, such as the XYBA start and the triggers and whatnot. And then once we attach the plug here, the other end of this, we'll attach to this assistant controller, and then we should be able to plug it in and try it out on the computer and test it. Okay, so here's the pinouts for your master controller, so you know how to hook things up to it. And it's much like the pinouts I write down in my notebook, where I can have all my pinouts of all my projects over the years.
My God, that's like your version of Indiana Jones's father's diary.
I wrote it in my diary so I don't have to remember. And who's gonna save you, Junior?
Hopefully you, Dad.
Okay, so we've got the red line here to help us keep track of what we're doing. So the red pin is going to be Y. So what we've got to do is we've got to hook this controller up. We got to hook this cable up to what we have here, and then this will be duplicated. So it's basically just a dumb shell of a controller, but it'll work, right? So we're not gonna erase these pictures, but for the audience to vote, what is cuter? 2 snakes in love, or a squirrel in a sleeping bag? That's for you to decide. Anyway, here's a switch, Ben. Right? You've got your, whatever your microcontroller is, and it'll have something called an internal pull-up. So you have like your voltage, which is 3.3 volts usually in this case, right? And that's called ones and zeros, logic high. So that's a 1, that's a logic high. Then you have your switch right here, which is your button, and that goes to ground. All the switch is when the button closes, this goes to ground, which makes it a 0. So all we're doing with the controller is, you've got your controller here, which is your main controller, right? And we're taking this signal and putting it in a different controller. So either controller can close the switch, take that to ground, and activate the button. That's
Perfect.
all there is to this. And a lot of wiring. So my hand coordination skills, see, that's very important. Would you like a surgery?
My left button bumper's not working.
Okay.
And it doesn't have a great response either.
Oh, okay. Number 6 is right bumper.
Number 6.
All right, so we've got a fixed left
the left
bumper.
bumper needs to be fixed and a little
Otherwise,
bit of
it's
Dremel.
doing everything that you want.
I think so. Well, these aren't supposed to work.
Right.
Oh, we didn't test back and start.
Oh, okay. 7 is back.
Yeah. And
Oh, you're pushing start.
Yeah. No, I was pushing back and I.
All right, so it looks like that one's not working.
Wait, like
7
it was
is back.
doing it at one point and then it stopped.
What happened? Yeah, so here, you want to see some engineering?
Is this engineering?
This is going to be...
So was it the bump you shaved down the
I didn't
switch
shave
head?
it down at all. It's almost like we just cobbled this together out of bits and pieces, and it doesn't all fit perfectly.
Right.
Isn't that weird?
Yes, it's amazing how it doesn't fit all.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what a little piece of folded up electric tape can do? Anything. Heat shrink tubing. It shrinks with heat rather than cold. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is design your, what you call the slam box?
With a slam bar.
Slam bar. So we bought these big buttons from Suzo Hap, which is an arcade parts distributor. So we can make the big X, Y, A, B buttons, and then you got these rectangular ones for the
Start and back.
start and back. Okay, cool.
Oh no, or those are the bumper triggers.
Okay, I knew
Yeah.
there was something.
Right. We don't have start and back on this. Okay.
Is that your final answer?
I don't know.
Okay, so what we have to do is we have to draw these into the computer so we can make a little box, and then we'll cut it on the CNC machine. So let's design. Okay, so the first thing we need to know is the distance between objects, and I'm just going to kind of 5 inches, and then this is going to be half over. Okay, so go on our screen here. Look good.
I would put a little more distance between the two groups.
You mean in the middle?
Yeah.
All right, so where do you want to put these buttons?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So these switches are kind of thick with the switch at the bottom, so we've had to make the case or the button things thicker. So we just have to route one more top piece of the buttons fit into, and then we can build the rest of the structure. So, Ben, we're going to put these walls here. We'll glue the walls to the top portion, and then the bottom portion will screw into place. That way you can take it apart if you need to.
Oh. Yeah, those came out good.
If you fill this whole thing with hot glue, that would solve all our problems.
So thanks a lot. This looks great. I've got a couple of friends who are will invite us over for pizza, and we can bring this over to them. They have an Xbox. They're eagerly waiting to see what we've been building all day. I've got the master controller. You've got the assistant. What's the Xbox? Dance pad, and then Everett, you've got the slam bar.
And 2 video games.
And 2 video games. We have to add some games. We're all set. Let's go see if it works.
Let's test this out in our home environment. After you.
Who opened the door?
Okay, Ben, so what are we doing here?
We're gonna try some different games and see which ones.
This button.
We're gonna see which games we can find that are kind of interesting to play in the game share format. So I thought with Fusion Frenzy, since it has a lot of like mini games, we might find some that are interesting. But
Is it working for you, Ben?
it is. It's definitely. I mean, this game is pretty simple. So Everett's doing well. He's firing. I'm just moving us back and forth. So it's a nice early test of the concept, and you got to figure out how to. Which one is?
The colored buttons are on back order.
I found swinging.
Oh, there you go. That's swinging. Okay, and then this one is guard. Okay, I got you. That one's guard.
Or 10.
Good job.
So Ben, Everett and I wanted to thank you for building the Game Share controller for Games for Health, and it's been really neat. We've gotten some good experimentation done. I think it's pretty cool. I definitely saw some instances where both Everett and I and our friends could play certain games that we couldn't play together before and play in new ways, and that's really what the whole project was about. So we'll definitely be testing some more games between now and Games for Help, figure out which ones are the most fun to play this way, and with the slam bar, and with the dance pad, and with the assistant controller. I think we got a lot of fun gaming ahead of us. Thanks.
That's all the time we have for today. In our next episode, we're going to attempt to build a portable, deployable 3D printer that we can take with us to Maker Faire. We'll see you then. Stay tuned at element14.com/TBHS, where you can join the discussion, suggest builds for the show, and even have a chance to win upcoming builds. Remember, you can always email build ideas to benheck@element14.com. Thanks for watching.